Hi everyone. So in this video, we are going to have a conversation about how we make comparisons to maybe younger versions of ourselves or previous versions of ourselves. And I think often we talk about comparisons in relation to us comparing ourselves to other people. But actually, I think there's something really important to discuss about how we actually make comparisons to ourselves, and maybe how we used to look, what our bodies used to be like, maybe what we used to be capable of, or what we used to enjoy doing. And I mean, from my own personal experience, I've noticed a lot of self-judgment around that as I've been getting older, I've changed, obviously, because we're not meant to stay the same in any aspect. Like there's no rule that says that we have to stay the same, or that we have to continue looking the same, or doing the same things, or having the same in things that we enjoy, or that our skill set has to stay the same. And I just think that often we don't really realize that that actually we can and do change. And so we just wanted to kind of pick that apart a bit. It's something that we're still exploring ourselves, so bear with us. But I think it's just quite an interesting topic to talk about, because I don't think I've really had this conversation many times before. So, Mum, from your experience, where have you noticed this before?
Well, I guess where I'd like to start is what I'm noticing right now, which is, change. So for me, being now menopausal. So, and you don't read about this, the stuff that the physical changes in your body, and the expectation that my body should look and be the same as it was when I was in my 40s or in my 30s even. And yet my body has just gone through the most extraordinary shift. I mean, it's the biggest shift since puberty. And I kind of expected my body to look and be the same. And it's like, but why would it? Why would it be the same? And again, that brings with it things like I used to enjoy doing certain things, and now I don't so much. I used to be good, judgment, good at doing some things, and now I'm not so good. But what can you see what the focus is here is on the stuff that I can no longer do compared to before. But what I'm not seeing is what I can do now that I couldn't do before. So we're focusing on all the negative changes that we deem negative from before. And I think that's such dangerous ground to be in.
And it's interesting, like what you just said, that I can even hear judgment in that,
Mm-hmm.
that's saying the use of the word like negative.
Yeah.
That actually, who says it's negative, that a negative thing that we can't do things that we used to do before? Yeah. Like why does that have to inherently be a bad thing? Like what if that's just life? And that actually our minds, our bodies are changing so that we can do other things instead, rather than it being something that we see as a loss. Yeah. So, like you said, we so often frame it in that way. I think it's like we're mourning the loss of, I don't know, what we were capable of doing when we were younger, for example.
And you know what's just come to mind is Pop. So Pop's my dad, who's 89 years old, still plays 18 holes of golf once a week. And his focus is, I can't hit the ball as far as I used to. What he's not seeing is he's flipping 89. The very fact that he's on a golf course playing 18 holes is phenomenal. But he comes back and I'm just so tired, and yeah, of course you are. But again, there's the judgment, right? I can't hit the ball as far as I used to. Rather than, isn't it awesome? I can still swing a golf club.
Yeah. And I think that we have so many expectations for ourselves, don't we? It's like, I don't know, I was seen when I was in school and at university, to an extent, I was seen as a kind of high achiever. And I was put in the kind of top math set and things like that. And so I then developed expectations of myself, and other people then had these expectations for me, that I would continue to be this high achiever, and that I would go on to become, I don't know, a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, those things that are deemed to be the kind of the high achieving professions. And we internalize a lot of this stuff, I think, and we feel it kind of almost turns into this pressure. Maybe we don't even realize, but this pressure to stay in that place. It's almost like taking a freeze frame in time, this snapshot in time of where we perceive ourselves and others perceive us as this kind of higher version of ourselves, that maybe we were, I don't know, we felt we could run 10 kilometers or whatever in a certain time, or we could achieve, we had these kind of academic achievements, or that we enjoyed going out partying all the time, or whatever it might have been. It's like we take this snapshot in time and then use that to beat ourselves up, and use that to compare ourselves against how we are now, and how, in our eyes, according to the standards and requirements we've set, or that we feel have been set for us, we then decide how much we are falling short, and how we are not as good as how we used to be, because that's how those are the measures that we've decided are important. And I don't think that's helpful.
And I think we can get into really dangerous territory here, because what I'm thinking about is around body image, and it's got worse during the pandemic, where young people are on Instagram and every photograph that they put out has got a filter on it. So people are now not only comparing themselves to how they were, but they're also comparing themselves to something that's completely made up, which is their filtered self, the image that they're getting all of this praise for, all the likes for, and it's not even them. So they're comparing themselves to that. And as we know, plastic surgery has just gone through the roof, with people wanting to look like they do in their filtered image. And it's really dangerous.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, because thinking back to quite a recent example where I did a proper clear out of my wardrobe, because I'd just kind of been picking off the top layer, whatever was top of the drawer, I would wear. And so I did a proper clear out and tried on literally every piece of clothing that I owned. And lo and behold, about half of it didn't fit. And I had a bit of a freak out because I wasn't this younger version of myself anymore. I mean, I had still had clothes that I've owned since I was like 16. And funnily enough, the body of the 28-year-old is not the same as the body of a teenager. And it's not meant to be.
No, I think that's it, B. It's not meant to be. So my body now is not meant to be as it was before menopause. And yet we're caught up in this. Well, I mean, you'd look ridiculous if you were still, you know, a 28-year-old looking like a 16-year-old, and same for me. Or to have this, you know, I've had 3 children. My stomach is not, you know, and it does not look like, you know, I did before I had children. And that's normal. And that's normal. But society and trolls and all of that just love to make us feel rubbish about ourselves. And we forget that we can choose to go, get lost. I'm not believing that. I'm not listening to that.
Yeah.
We forget that we are not our bodies.
Or our skills, or our achievements, or our all of that stuff, all of the extra stuff that's just layered on top. That's not who we are. And ultimately, well, what I see now is that that's not important ultimately. But I just think there's just so much judgment from ourselves towards ourselves, and like you say, we have this choice, and I don't think we realize that, and I don't think we realize that it's all made up. All of these expectations, all of these stories that we are meant to look and feel and behave in, and have the abilities of, I don't know, what is deemed to be perfect or desirable, that is all made up. And once we see that, it's like, right, well, why the hell was I believing that in the first place? And making ourselves feel so bad about it, because we waste so much time and so much energy and emotional energy as well on seeking and seeking things to better ourselves. And it can be, it's so much better spent elsewhere. I imagine just all of the, what would happen if we turned all that time and energy and all of that stuff onto ourselves, but in a kind way, in a way that is accepting, and showing ourselves love and compassion.
I want to read a quote here because it's just come into my mind, the one that I shared a while ago from Lamott. And she says, "Oh my God, what if you wake up someday and you're 65 or 75 and you never got your memoir or novel written, or you didn't go swimming in those warm pools and oceans all those years because your thighs were jiggly and you had a nice big comfortable tummy, or you were just so strung out on perfectionism and people pleasing that you forgot to have a big juicy creative life of imagination and radical stillness and staring off into space like when you were a kid. It's going to break your heart. Don't let this happen." And that's just given me goosebumps, just remembering that again, because we forget.
Yeah.
This life is not a dress rehearsal. This is life. And are we going to deny ourselves a life because we're caught up with all of this self-judgment, listening to the inner critic, listening to other people's opinions?
Mm.
I love that she says it will break your heart, and I think that's true.
Yeah, it's so true. And it kind of goes back to what I ask a lot, which is, what do you want? And I think often our sort of autopilot knee-jerk reaction is, oh, but I want all of these things. I want to look this way, or I want to be able to do this thing because it makes me happy. But I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced by that because I used to believe that too. I used to believe that being a certain size or a certain weight or having certain things would make me happy. And there's this very, very temporary, this kind of feeling that almost mimics happiness, this sort of high almost we get when we achieve these almost like kind of surface level goals, these society driven goals. But then it's never sustained. It's almost like ticking this checkbox, and then that doesn't become enough. So actually it's like sinking beneath that and actually thinking, what do in my heart, in my soul, what do I want? And I think we so rarely go to that place because we're constantly being told what we want. We're constantly being told that this car will make you happy, or this 5-star luxury holiday will make you happy, or being able to squeeze into this insanely tiny pair of jeans will make you happy, or it'll make you feel superior, or like whatever it is. We're constantly being told this. So of course on some level we think that's true because we're being bombarded with it all the time. And so it's like it almost disguises itself as what we really want. But I think if we dig a bit beneath the surface, it's like looking back when, like you were just saying with that quote, like if we imagine us when we're kind of towards the end of our life and looking back, what do we want to see? What do we want to have experienced? And I'm not going to give a crap when I'm 90 years old whether or not at one point in my life I could fit into a teeny tiny pair of jeans that I couldn't breathe in.
Yeah, but that's so true. That's so true.
And so I think there's something about perspective. And I think that kind of almost doing that exercise can be really helpful. But I think it's also noticing the expectations that you have for yourself, and that maybe that's kind of started as expectations that other people had for you, or maybe still have for you, and noticing that that's also all made up and not a requirement. And I think there's something quite big around this, what really makes us happy and joyful, and what we really want.
Yeah. It's
And
from the
notice.
Deep down.
Say again.
It's from the deep down place.
Yeah.
Not the superficial, what do I want, but from that deep down place.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
Yeah. And that might not necessarily come to you as, oh, I want to do all of these things. It might just be, I want connection, or I want joy, I want excitement. And actually, maybe that's a really good sign that that's coming from that deep down place, because I don't think the deep down place in us would say, oh, you really want to go and I don't know, do this very specific experience which you've seen on that in that advert on that place, and it's tuning into that feeling.
Yeah, it's the feeling.
And what sensations accompany that? Does it kind of make the hairs stick up on your arms? Does it make you feel excited?
And teeny tiny jeans aren't going to do that.
They're never going to do that.
No. Well, that was a juicy conversation.
Yeah, I think there's so much to see around this.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show like how powerful and creative our minds are, that they convince us that we need to be a certain way, or act a certain way, or do certain things, or look a certain way in order to fulfill all these made up expectations. But that's all crap. So on that note, thanks for watching, and we hope you found it given some food for thought, and we will see you in the next video.